Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Reverse Mortgage Weekly. We're here back again, hopefully with sound, with Karis Meskimen of Advanced Planning, The Natural Funeral. And she has just such an incredible product that I'd love to shine a spotlight on and really important things that we all will need to look at one point or another. So, Karis, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, good morning. So I am an advanced planner with the Natural Funeral, which means that I help folks document their final wishes and make sure that they have the service and the disposition that they'd like. We at the Natural Funeral do no embalming. It's all natural. We have three methods that folks often choose when they are environmentally conscious, that want to do something good for the planet, that don't want to have an extra carbon footprint. So I help folks do that.
Oh, that's wonderful. And, there's a lot of folks who I know I am one of these people. I am very specific and I'm very adamant about how I want my remains to be put back to the earth,
Right.
and I often, try to, do my best. I know we're humans and we, we build buildings and have highways and everything. But at the same time, I mean, we are all, from the earth and we will go back to the earth someday. And, the idea of me being in a box is not appealing to me at all. Um,
Right.
so, so tell us about we actually had a conversation before, and what I was really fascinated about was the different types of, what's the correct terminology? Is it disposition?
Disposition is what we call it.
Okay, okay. So it's like usually I hear that word. It's like, oh, he has a cheery disposition, or
Right.
I guess it's double.
Final disposition is what we call it.
Okay, okay. So tell us a little bit about the different types. But before we go into that, actually, I was just thinking, like, how did the company come about? Do you have any history on
Yeah, I
how things
do.
started and all that?
Sure. So one of our co-founders, Seth Vidal, had a really tough 36 months back in 2015, I believe it was, or 16. And he actually lost several members of his family. So he, first of all, lost his father, his stepfather, who his mom called and said, your dad has passed. And he was. Native American, and they went back to Kansas to make sure that he could get his funeral. And they basically went to the same funeral home that his grandparents had used. And so they pulled out the file and said, "This is what your grandparents got. Let's just do the same thing for your dad." And so it was the baby blue casket with the specific words that were said and everything, just like his grandparents had been, decades before. And then, unfortunately, his later on, his brother passed, and he was a very different human being, and was. They were shocked and had to go back to Kansas again, and they just pulled out the same thing and got the baby blue casket and all the same words. And didn't really feel those were two very different circumstances and very different people, and they weren't being honored kind of true to who they were. And then, unfortunately, his mother died not long after that, and she was packing to come see him and just slumped over her suitcase and just passed away. And they went back to Kansas, same thing, and just got the exact same funeral for all three of those people who were vastly different. So he kind of had a crisis of conscience at that point, sold his construction business and went back to school and learned all about death and dying practices, learned about what they could do as a natural way to return people to the earth, and then helped found the Natural Funeral back in 2019.
Wow, that is fascinating. My gosh, it always yeah, I can thank you for sharing that, by the way. It's such a beautiful story to hear about, how these things can come about and things like that. So wonderful to hear the background, and I always think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fascinating.
Well, $50,000 later, he had didn't feel like they had really honored the
Yeah,
folks that
yeah.
had passed, and he wanted to create something different.
Sure, sure. No, that's wonderful. And I'm glad he did, because I think there's a large section of our culture, our society that really cares pretty deeply about, what happens to them after we pass. So that's one of the reasons we're having you on today. I'm a big proponent of it. So tell us about some of the different ways that the natural funeral can dispose of remains.
Yeah, so we support families in a variety of ways. We have funeral homes in Lafayette and Loveland, and then our care center in Arvada, although we serve the entire state of Colorado and even have clients that come to us from outside of the state. And I'll explain why in a minute because there are things you can get here in Colorado that you can't get elsewhere. So the first thing that we started doing in 2019, which was kind of the only option for natural funerals, was something called green burial. And green burial is when you have a plot in a cemetery. We use the Lion Cemetery and also the Colorado Burial Preserve down in south of Colorado Springs in Florence, where no bodies are embalmed. You basically would be covered in a shroud or use a wicker carrier with an open top or a bamboo casket or we custom design beetle kill pine caskets. And so the body is placed in a grave that's much shallower than a typical grave with none of that cement vault over the top of them. So the root system can get to the body about 3 feet deep and actually naturally decompose the body. So that was the first thing we started in 2019. And then a couple years later, water cremation became available in the state of Colorado. So we started doing water cremation. And water cremation takes place in a stainless steel vessel that we put in 12 gallons of warm water and an alkaline formula. And this vessel rocks. So it goes about 3 degrees one way for 15 seconds and then 3 degrees the other way for 15 seconds. And it puts a gentle wave across the body. And in a few hours, it decomposes the soft tissue into something we call a liquid essence. And once we bring that pH back to a 6.5 or 7, it becomes bioavailable for plants. So it turns into about 25 gallons per 100 pounds of us. So it's a lot of liquid, very concentrated, and it is a biostimulant. So what we do is help folks donate that to land stewards all over the state of Colorado, things like flower farms, reforestation projects, pastures that have been overgrazed, and we actually return your body naturally to the earth that way. Also, what's left in that vessel is the skeletal remains, which we take out and we dry in a food grade dehydrator very slowly overnight, then turn those into powder and return those back to the family. So it's something like you would get back when you have a flame cremation, the cremains. And then also any
Those,
with
I
that.
mean, with the skeletal remains, they can use those as like compost, right?
Well, the skeletal remains people will keep in an urn or they can, scatter however they want. What the
Okay.
real biostimulant is that liquid essence
I
from the process. That's what brings new life.
oh,
And then anything that's left, like a pacemaker or a titanium hip or anything, we send that back out for medical recycling. So nothing goes to waste. So
okay.
that's our second method of disposition. And then our third method, which became legalized just after that, was the terramation process, which is called natural organic reduction, or some people know it as human composting.
Mhm.
And what we do there is we have built a proprietary vessel that we call a chrysalis vessel because it helps transform the body. And in with the body, we put straw, alfalfa, and wood chips, and then proprietary blend of fungal spores and bacteria that over about a month's time will decompose the body into this beautiful, rich, living soil. And this living regenerative soil can then be placed with a tree, with a flower garden with a rose bush, anything that the family would like. It takes about a month to decompose the body. Then we have the skeletal remains. Again, we turn those into powder and reintroduce those to the soil so the magnesium and calcium can support that. And then again, any medical devices are sent back out for medical recycling. After that first month, we put the soil in a curing bin that actually gases off and cools down, so it's then bioavailable for plants. And families can get that back in 25-pound bags. It's a
Mhm.
14 to 16 25-pound bags of this living regenerative soil to give back to the family to put where they would like, or then we can donate it to those same land stewards. And you can become a flower in your next life, or support a rose bush or a tree. People are always saying, I just want to be a tree when I die.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
this is another way to do it outside of water cremation.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Now, do the families get to choose which farms or places that the remains go to?
Yeah, not the specific farm, but they can say, I would prefer to be in a forest area, or
Yeah.
I would prefer to
Yeah.
go to a flower farm. And then we work with the folks that have the most need at the time, and we make sure to honor their wishes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Great. Great. Well, I think all of this is just fascinating. I think it's a much more honorable and a much better way to return our remains to the earth. I've always thought that getting put in a box and in the ground is just a little, I don't know, it's a little, I feel it's a little, well, I don't know. I feel it's a little callous. So,
Well, it's with the embalming and all the things that are bad for the earth. It
yeah.
actually takes so much of a carbon footprint to do the conventional burials and the flame cremation. People think, well, I don't want to take
Yeah.
up space in the ground. I'd rather do something more environmentally friendly. And they don't realize that flame cremation, with its 1800-degree flames for several hours and then the pollution out the chimney, is not good for our environment. Water cremation takes about 1/10 of that carbon footprint. And when you're talking about terramation, it actually sequesters a half a ton of carbon. So it's much better for the environment and actually gives back.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about, walk us through the process when someone contacts you and they want to get their funeral uh, in line and
Sure.
basically get things going with what they want for with their remains.
Absolutely. So we sit down and it's a process of education at the beginning. So people often know, I have solar in my house. I drive a hybrid car. I recycle. I do all these things, and I want my body to somehow um, honor my value system, right? So we sit down and I understand what their value system is. If they have any cultural or religious preferences, we'll talk about what they envision as they pass and what kind of celebration of life do they want. We also have something called reverent body care. And reverent body care is when a family chooses a viewing or visitation after the loved one has passed, and we can support that in our chapel in Loveland or Lafayette or even at home. And it allows the family to come and participate in preparing their loved one for their death. So instead of the funeral director trying to figure out what side they part their hair on, the family can come and brush the hair and wash the face and put lotion and essential oils on their loved one and start the grieving process that way. So that's sometimes something that speaks to people. We also have, with the terramation, a beautiful process called a laying in ceremony, where they actually get to come with the chrysalis vessel and put love notes and flowers and anything organic in with their person to go on their journey of transformation. So we talk about the different options and what feels right to that person. And then we document the entire plan and complete some forms that we'll need for the death certificate and things like that. And then it can either be a funded plan, which means you prepay, or an unfunded plan where people can just pay outright for the whole terramation or water cremation or green burial. The green burial also requires a plot, so we can help people purchase a plot. And then they can also choose to pay over time. So to budget that much more friendly, pay over 3, 5, or 10 years and just have to pay a little bit at a time. And the beautiful thing about that is we use a company called Global Atlantic to hold all the funds. And so we don't actually keep the funds. Global Atlantic keeps the funds, and you have a policy that upon your death, the funds are transferred to the natural funeral to pay for your funeral. And if you pay over time with a premium, after your first premium, say of $120 or something, you're fully covered. So if an accident should happen the very next month, you're fully covered for your entire funeral.
Interesting. It sounds like a really, I'm a finance guy, mortgage guy, so the financing
Right.
really is intriguing to me. It sounds like you're using some vehicles that are beneficial for, both parties. So that's
Absolutely. And that policy is the loved one actually owns that policy. So if for some reason they move out of state, they can take that policy with them, choose another funeral home, and be able to use those funds for their funeral there. So it's completely portable and they're not locked into using the natural funeral if something should happen to our company or anything.
Sure, sure. No, that's great. I think it adds a, level of security, the warm fuzzy,
Right.
it makes me
Absolutely.
feel a little bit
Absolutely.
uh
Yeah. And
better.
advanced planning is just something that you want to do for your family.
Yeah.
I had my mother pass suddenly last 2 years ago, April, and we hadn't really had the conversation about what did she want to do. And so we were kind of in shock because it was a very unexpected death and starting to grieve and trying to make those difficult decisions at a time when you just don't have all your faculties about you. In contrast, my aunt just passed away a few weeks ago, and she had fully funded her plan and written down all of the things that she wanted, including songs she wanted sung
Yeah.
and scriptures she wanted read. You know, whatever your affiliation is, you can document everything that you want and take all the stress off the family. Then what they do is make one call to the natural funeral, and we come and transport the body, shelter until we can get the death certificate. We do an online obituary, notify Social Security. So everything's really taken care of that way. And it's just one phone call for the family that's grieving.
Oh, that's great, and I know that we brought this up in a previous conversation, but yeah, it's so vitally important. I had somebody sit me down and have that come to Jesus talk about, getting things planned out, and really it
Right.
is the responsible thing to do.
Mhm.
You don't want to put
Really a gift.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a gift for your family, and it puts your mind at ease to know that
Yeah,
that pressure's taken off.
absolutely. Well, how
Mhm.
can people get hold of you? What's the best contact or best way for people to reach out to you?
We have a website called thenaturalfuneral.com, and there's videos and information out there about our services. For me personally, you can get in touch with me at on email at Karis at the Natural Funeral. That's Karis like Paris, but with a K at thenaturalfuneral.com. And you can also give me a call. I'll put my contact information out, but it's 720-308-8737.
Well, this has been such a pleasure and joy to hear about your business this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions about a mortgage or anything like that, you can always give us a call. We are one of the top reverse mortgage planners here in the state. You can reach us anytime at chariotreverse.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, Karis.
Thanks, Zach.